A list of the apparent 6 most common illegal fundraising scams in China was recently released by the China Banking Regulatory Commission, or CBRC. The report says that small private Chinese firms who have trouble getting loans from Chinese banks have long relied on informal sources for gathering funds, including peer-to-peer lending and crowdsourced funding. And Chinese families who have very limited investment opportunities at home have been piling into such schemes. According to a report by the China Youth Daily, one emerging field for shady illegal fundraising highlights a particular vulnerability among China's increasingly aging population. According to the CBRC, one of the most common illegal fundraising areas is using the idea of providing for one's elderly relatives. These operations organize seminars and give small gifts to recruit either elderly people or their children to invest in the building of new retirement homes. Given China's shortage of good elderly care and crazy long waiting lists for nursing homes, it's no wonder that some people are susceptible to this scam. So, how do Chinese net users react to this? Do they think that the aging population has contributed a lot to the swindlers? Let's cross over to the newsroom and our researcher, Julia Liu. Hi, Julia. First of all, besides this fraud about persuading the elderly to build new retirement homes, is the fraud that specifically targets the elderly very common in China?
Well, Scott, by scanning the news and comments from net users, I have to say the answer to this question is yes. And the types of fraud vary a lot. While in some cases they pose as bank staff or police, asking the elderly to transfer their money to what that they call safe bank accounts. And in some cases they even pose as the child of the elderly. For example, some conmen would send short messages to the elderly written, "That is me, I got my wallet stolen. Please send some money to my friend's account." Or they would just call them saying, "Your child just got hit by a car and is in the emergency room. Please send advance for the surgery." Well, meanwhile, some net users are eager to share their own stories. Well, this poster He Ni says on QQ.com. Well, my grandparents lost all their savings by purchasing some so-called health products. Well, they go to those crazy stores crawling with swindlers every day, and their rooms is filled with products they've bought. And most net users do believe that this phenomenon will become more common. Well, a survey on QQ.com shows that 87% of almost 60,000 net users think that with the aging population, this sector of people will make China a paradise for swindlers.
So, outside of a reputable study performed by the University of California which showed less activity of elderly people in the area of the brain known as the anterior insula, which helps us better distinguish between a viable and shady individual or activity, what do net users think is the reason behind elderly people falling victim to such scams?
Well, net users have a lot to say about this issue. Well, some think that it's simply due to the lack of sociability of the elderly. While this poster, Hailing, says on Tencent.com. Well, most elderly people are conned because they don't really know what's going on in this world. And it would be better if they read more news from newspapers or listened to the radio. And some net users point out that a lack of sense of security contributes a lot to this phenomenon. And this poster has this take on ynet.com, saying, well, with increasing age and body functions changing, it's normal that the elderly are getting more and more insecure about their health. Well, things might be even worse in China than any other country in the world, considering the rather poor medical care system. Well, they would of course want to make some investment in their health to feel safer. And some posters also mention the fraud that relates to the children of the elderly. Or they think that the problem is not that easy that can be concluded as the fault exclusively of the elderly. Well, this poster has this to say on cqnews.net. Well, in recent years, more and more elderly people are left at home living on their own since their kids have left the city for work, study, or to start a new family. And the problem is specifically serious in China due to the one-child policy. Well, in some cases, when the elderly are conned, they can't even tell the difference between the voice of the common and their own children because they have so little contact. Well, the younger generation should think about this aspect of the problem as well.
Well, just as this poster suggests, it seems more communication between the elderly and their offspring is a great idea. What do net users have to say about this?
Well, on this question, there are indeed some who hold similar ideas. Well, this poster says on cnr.cn. While older people tend to trust the strangers more because they've long been living in loneliness. Young people should contact their parents more often, even just by a simple phone call, to discuss some stories of these frauds. Well, however, not everybody is so optimistic about this solution. Well, Zhuo Guilan says on ynet.cn. Well, sometimes the elderly firmly believe what they believe solely based on their life experience, and they are stubborn about certain things that they choose to believe. And when they get caught, they won't even tell their children out of dignity. Meanwhile, Zhan Jinhua has this to say on Sina.com. Well, young people have their own pressure in life, and it's not realistic to solve the problem by asking them to supervise the elderly. Well, on this issue, we can actually draw a lesson from Japan, who's been facing the same problem due to the aging society issue for a long time. For example, they ask banks to organize campaigns to give lectures. Anyway, this is indeed an issue that needs to be solved urgently.
Thanks, Julia. And that was China Take researcher Julia Liu with a look at China's growing scams targeting the elderly. Next up on China Take, some of the top trending phrases on China's most popular search engines.